More frontier men died from things they were sure of than from anything with teeth. A bear kills you in a minute. A bad belief kills you slowly, over 3 days, while you do everything you were taught. 9 pieces of trail wisdom, trusted completely, ranked here from least to most deadly. The countdown begins with a cold weather cure that destroyed more flesh than the frost it was meant to fix. Before I go on, let me say one thing and I won't say it again. I have gathered all of this, the water, the fire, the food, the shelter, into a handbook at frontiertricks.com. The book is the long version, everything written down plain so you can keep it in a drawer and find it when you need it. If you want it, it's there. That's all. Now, back to it. Number 9. To treat frostbite, pioneers commonly scrubbed frozen limbs with snow. This friction and sharp ice crystals tore the delicate frozen tissue instead of restoring it. The aftermath was shredded flesh, gangrene, and fatal infections. More men died from these crude amputations than from the cold itself. Number 8. Common trail lore dictated that if you got lost, you simply followed flowing water downstream to find civilization. But in the rugged American West, this survival rule became a geographic trap. Unlike gentle eastern rivers, western waterways like the Snake River often funneled travelers into sheer box canyons, dense swamps, and dead-end basins with no escape. Trusting this navigation advice too completely led entire wagon parties far into impassable terrain. Search parties later documented finding exhausted pioneers who had walked 80 miles in the wrong direction, chasing water that led only to starvation. The danger here was not the rivers themselves, but a blind faith in bad logic that turned natural pathways into inescapable dead ends. Number 7. In the dry sagebrush of the Great Plains, a rattlesnake strike demanded immediate action. Pioneers turned to an old, deeply trusted remedy, slicing open the puncture wounds and trying to suck the venom out by mouth. It felt decisive, but medically, it was useless. Venom penetrates underlying tissue in the bloodstream within seconds. No amount of suction can pull it back out. Instead, slicing into a swollen, compromised limb with a dirty pocket knife did the real killing. This crude cutting carved open pathways for aggressive, systemic infections, while the resulting blood loss rapidly weakened travelers already fighting off potent cardiotoxins. Ultimately, the reptile's fangs merely delivered a survivable wound, while the desperate, bloody surgery delivered the actual fatal blow. Number 6. Frontier lore often passed around a single, absolute rule for surviving a bear encounter. Lie flat, cover your neck, and play dead. While this passivity could occasionally appease a defensive grizzly, applying it to every bear on the continent was a fatal mistake. The American black bear behaves differently. Unlike the grizzly, a black bear that attacks is rarely acting in defense. It is hunting. For a hungry black bear, a motionless human lying silent on the forest floor is not a threat that has been neutralized, but an easy meal. By refusing to fight back or make noise, pioneers unwittingly invited predatory black bears to begin feeding. Survival depended entirely on identifying the species, yet travelers trusted a universal folk rule that turned a survivable encounter into a fatal trap. Number 5. On the trail, cold weather prompted pioneers to pile on every layer of clothing they owned. Wrapping up in heavy cotton and thick wool felt like the safest way to survive a freezing wind. But during the intense physical labor of clearing trails or walking alongside wagons, this heavy bundling became a trap. Settlers worked up a heavy sweat, soaking their garments from the inside out. Once the sun went down and exertion stopped, those wet layers pulled heat away from the body up to 4 times faster than dry air. Men literally froze to death inside their own coats after a hard day's march. Even the U.S. Army later forbade soldiers from wearing heavy coats during active duty, knowing that in the sub-zero wild, warmth depends on staying dry, not just piling on more cloth. Number 4. On freezing trail nights, exhausted trappers and teamsters routinely reached for the bottle. A deep swig of whiskey brought a sudden welcome rush of heat, comforting frozen bones before they crawled under their blankets. But this soothing warmth was an illusion. Alcohol dilates the blood vessels closest to the skin, sending warm core blood rushing to the body's surface. While this feels like a fire in the chest, It actually accelerates the loss of core heat, radiating it away into the sub-zero night. Underclothed and shivering, men who drank a heavy dram before sleeping on the frozen ground drifted off with a false sense of security. Because of this physiological trap, many of them simply never woke up. The comfort they trusted to save them was the very thing that let the cold slip in unnoticed. Number 3. In the parched stretches of the Great Basin, wagon leaders often ordered strict rationing, limiting pioneers to tiny sips of water a day. They believed stretching the supply would buy them precious time. But this desperate conservation proved fatal. Chronic underdrinking did not save lives. It slowly shut the body down. Long before a water barrel ran dry, dehydration clouded pioneer judgment, sapping their physical strength and destroying their ability to make hard decisions. Their bodies failed while they still had resources left. The tragic proof lay along the trail where rescue parties made a horrifying discovery. They found deceased pioneers and several gallons of fresh water still sitting untouched inside their barrels. They had starved their bodies of hydration to protect a supply that ultimately outlived them. The fatal mistake was worrying more about making the water last than surviving the actual crossing. Number 2. In the freezing mountain passes of the West, lost travelers and trappers routinely packed dry snow into their mouths when their canteens ran dry. It seemed like an abundant, obvious choice for survival. But eating raw snow is a thermodynamic trap. Snow is mostly air and ice, meaning a person has to melt massive amounts of frozen crystals just to get a single liter of liquid water. The physics of this phase change forced the human body to expend nearly 100 kilocalories of precious core heat. For an exhausted, hungry pioneer already fighting the wind, this rapid internal cooling triggered severe hypothermia. Emigrants perished in winter camps completely surrounded by water because their bodies simply ran out of the thermal energy needed to melt it. The hard lesson of the high trail was that abundance could be an illusion, and frozen water was a quiet killer. And finally, in first place, the belief that clear, fast-running water is safe to drink. This single misunderstanding carried the broadest reach and the heaviest documented death toll on the historic overland trails. 19th century guidebooks actively assured travelers that swift streams required no boiling, prompting pioneers to let down their guard. Relying on this advice, thousands of emigrants drank directly from rivers where upstream camps had already introduced cholera and dysentery. Wagon parties stopping at Ash Hollow or the Platte River crossings drank freely from the sparkling currents, only to succumb within hours. The pathogens swept through wagon parties with terrifying speed, killing far more people than every predator on the continent combined. Instead of finding safety, families buried their dead in crowded, unmarked rows at the very river crossings where they had stopped to drink. It stands as the decisive correction of the American frontier. Wilderness water must be boiled, filtered, or chemically treated, no matter how clean and pure it looks. Subscribe to the channel for more survival history. Across all 9 myths, one hard truth remains. The deadliest hazard on the trail was not the wild, but the unverified advice pioneers trusted completely. Today, false confidence still kills in the backcountry. Nature never forgives a bad assumption. Subscribe to keep uncovering these forgotten chapters of history.